So this is the second part of how to make our gnome card. We're using watercolor paper. We've sketched out our gnomes, and this is what the final product could look like. This is an option. On this one, I outlined it in the extra fine Sharpie. This one at the end, and we'll talk about that. But let's get started on our gnomes. Now, when I started the first time, I experimented with a couple different color combinations. So usually when we think about painting green and red, we just go to the palette and we do green and red. But there's a couple things that we can do. We can actually combine colors to get kind of different shades of green and different shades of red. They call them hues, okay? So I made a little grid of all the possible colors that we can actually make with these. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start out painting their hats. And I kind of like this color. This is actually purplish red, but it can turn out like this. So I'm actually going to do red with a little bit of purple. And I'm going to show you two different ways to do that. Okay? So I'm going to push this off to the side. Here are my gnomes, and I'm going to start with their hats because they're fun. So the first technique I'm going to show you guys is actually wet on wet. So you're going to take your clean water and you're going to paint it so that it's all wet. And that's your first step. Now the materials that you need, as always, are your paint set, your brush, a paper towel or a rag, and then a cup of clean water. Okay, so I've painted this, it's all wet. Now I'm gonna go in and add, and I'm gonna paint in the lines as well as I can. Now I'm gonna go add some color. So I'm gonna swirl it around in the red, like this, and you're gonna kind of brush it, and it's gonna spread wherever the water is. Like this. And I'm just going to kind of smear it around. The nice thing about this is it leaves these cool techniques when it dries. So some of you are looking at this red thinking, that's perfect, that's the red I want. That's great. Since I'm experimenting for you, I'm going to try and add just a little bit of purple. Now I can clean my brush. It doesn't quite matter as much when you're going to a darker color, but I'm going to add just a little bit of purple and swirl it in. And maybe you like that. It's a slightly deeper red. Can't really tell much of a difference. Now, if I were doing a better job at this, I'll show you how to better mix your colors. This is kind of purplish in the middle. And I'm just kind of pushing the color to the outside. Okay? If I were doing a better job mixing my colors, here's what I would do. You're going to turn your tray around. Okay? And you're going to do this. You're going to get your brush wet. You're going to swirl it around the red. And then you're going to smear that red into the lid. Then you're going to rinse and dry your brush off. And you're going to go into the purple. And you're going to swirl it around. And this will give you kind of that purplish red. And you can test it on a separate piece of paper if you like it. Ooh, that's pretty purpley. Can you see that? So I'm going to add some more red to that. See if you like it. Test it on a separate piece of paper. That's kind of cool. Maybe you want a little more red. Okay? So while this one's drying, I'm not going to do anything. I don't want to touch it. So I'm going to make some stripes in the other one. So I'm going to use red because it was already on my paintbrush. And I'm actually going to trace sort of the outline of the bottom of his hat, as if it was kind of flopping on his head. And you'll notice I'm going to stay with the U shapes the whole time as I go up, because when you have a U shape, it makes it look more rounded. And if I need to get more ink or paint, I'm going to just dip it in And I'm going to keep sliding up. And you might decide, ooh, I want to make some of these a little bit fatter. That's okay. Go back. Make them a little bit fatter. It's fine. There's no rules to your hat or to your gnome. And remember, if you mess up, it's okay. We can fix it. That's the nice thing about watercolors. Okay? This technique we're doing right here is actually dry on dry or dry on wet. So it's a dry paper and we're using wet paint. Like that. And don't worry if it doesn't go quite to the edge. We can fake it a little bit with our Sharpies at the end. Okay? Now, because I also know that I want their feet red, I'm going to paint their feet red at the same time. But I have to be careful because I have to let it dry before I do their outfits. Because otherwise the color, this red, will bleed into their outfits that I'm going to make in kind of a greenish color. Okay. So there we go. There are their feet, kind of this red. I'm going to clean my brush, dip it in the water, and wipe it until it comes out with no red on it. That way I know it's clean. If you notice that your water is getting kind of dirty, then you can go pour it out and get some fresh water. Okay, so this hat I'm going to make with green. And this over here, I actually really like this green color, but you'll notice B-O. B for blue, O for orange. So I'm actually going to mix blue and then orange to make this. So I have to clean my brush. There's my blue. And now I'm going to go into orange. And I'm going to mix it. Okay, let's see how it turns out. I'm going to test it right here. Maybe a little more orange. Well, let's test it. Let's see how it looks. See, oh, see what happened? I should not have done that. I wanted to add a little more orange, but now it made it all gross. That's okay. I'm going to show you how to fix it. If you have a paper towel, it works great. I'm going to use a little rag, and I'm just going to wipe it up. And there we go. I wasted a little bit of paint, but that's okay. So here is my mixing of blue and orange, and I'm hoping it's going to give me kind of a dark green. That's a little bit darker, and I'm going to make stripes on his too. Why not? I like stripes. They're fun. And they seem very holiday and festive-like. And I'm just going to go over them because I decided after I started I wanted them a little fatter, so that they're a little bit different from my red stripes. Now on this one, I'm going to show you another little trick. So a lot of times when we paint, especially with a floppy hat like this, we're making them slightly curved so that we know that the hat is round. But you also notice that as I get up here, I'm not really going, I'm kind of turning into this corner. It's because I want to show the hat is flopping over. So when those little stripes kind of convene to that bendy point, makes it look like it's all bending in on itself. That one got kind of fat. Oh well, it's fine. Okay, and since I have my green already, I'm going to start painting their bodies. Now again, this is still dry on wet. So the watercolor paper is dry and my paints are wet. And you see how it kind of goes on? If I stay to a small area, it's kind of dry. So watch what happens when I add a little bit of water. Kind of spreads out. And you might decide you like this or you might not, and that's okay. I'm going to add a little more color. It's when you add water, it's going to get a little lighter in color. The darker you want it, the less water. Now, let's say you've put a big glob of water on it and you think, oh, I don't like that. That's okay. Take your rag, come over, and this is important. You're just going to push down and pop up. Oh, it kind of leaves a nice texture. You might like that, or you might decide, nope, I want to go back in and I want to add more color. That's okay. Try it. It's going to turn out cool no matter what. It looks like I'm out of my special green. So this time I'm going to be smart and go for my light color and put it right here and mix it up. And I like to go around 3 times and then put it down. Then I'm going to clean my brush. And I'm going to go to blue. And I'm going to mix it up. And last time I made this mistake. What do you think? I don't know. Is it too blue? It's a little blue. So I'm going to solve that problem. I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to go back to orange and add more orange to my collection and just brush over it. Okay. Now you'll notice that I added less water to this. So look how much darker it is than the other guys. Uh-oh. Oh, I kind of went into my red shoes. Oh well. That's fine. And you don't have to make these outfits green. You might look at some of these colors and say, oh, kind of want to make it this color, blue and red. Comes out this deeper purple. This is purple, but this is blue and red, almost like a maroonish purple. Now remember, you can kind of change the look of it by adding a little more of one color or a little less of another color. I was running out of paint, so I added water. That'll be fine. Sometimes I just like to pat it down like this because I like the way it looks. See how it kind of dries like this over here? Uh-oh, I forgot a shoe. I'll just have to wait till the end to go back. So I'm just going to finish painting. I hope you guys enjoyed today's lesson. And you enjoyed painting your gnomes. When you're finished painting your gnomes, you need to wait until they are dry before you do the final step. So I'm going to finish painting this before I run out of green and it dries out. Then I'm going to show you how to clean up and how to finish up. So I'm going to put this off to the side to dry because I don't want this to drip. So I'm going to move that off to the side. You'll notice that here in my paint palette, I have some leftover red paint. I'm actually going to paint my extra shoe that I forgot to paint. And then all you're going to do is you're going to take your rag or your paper towel, you're going to wipe it up. And if you need to add a little water, you can add a little water to clean the top of your paint tray so that it's clean and ready to go for next time. It's not perfectly clean. This is a really old paint set. It used to belong to my son. I'm going to put this off and I'm going to show you the final step. This is my tool that I use for this is my Sharpie Extra Fine or Ultra Fine. All I did for this, I'm going to wait until it's dry, and then I'm going to trace over the outside of their hats. And if you go outside the lines, it doesn't really matter, because after you're finished, you can take your white eraser and erase any of these pencil lines. So I'm just going to trace over this. Remember, his nose hairs kind of come down from his nose and then his hat as you go out. And if you don't stick to the lines that you did in pencil, that's okay. See this one, you can see in there. It's not a big deal. I'm going to take my white eraser. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to erase those pencil lines. See? There they go. Now be careful as you erase over your watercolor. It will erase the pencil, but if you go too hard, it'll actually erase some of your watercolors. Okay, so just be kind of gentle and just pull it off to the side to get rid of any unwanted pencil marks. And there you go. I'm going to finish these 2 gnomes. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Have fun painting.